Alright, well you probably clicked on this video because you're looking to learn a little bit more about the cost of living right here in Airdrie, Alberta, and that's exactly what we're going to go through on this video. Now we did do a video on this last year in 2021, but a few of these items definitely needed a bit of an update. As you know, things have gotten a bit crazy in our world since then in terms of pricing of goods and services, so I wanted to do an update video to show you what things are looking like around Airdrie right now in terms of cost of living. Now before we get started, as always, scroll down, hit that like button for me. I would really appreciate it if you could do that for me. Helps get this video in front of other people who might be interested as well. And also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos. But for now, let's just jump right into it. And first off, we're going to talk about gas prices. Now gas prices have gone up a ton since our last video, and to start 2022 we were about $1.33 a liter here in Alberta, specifically right around here in Airdrie, and we steadily went up from there throughout the year. Now as of April 1st here in Alberta, we no longer pay a provincial fuel tax on our gas, so that's a savings of about 13 cents a liter, but prices did continue to rise, so we did see a 13% decrease in prices in early April, but now prices have continued to go up, and now in May 2022, right now we're sitting at about $1.71 per liter of regular. That's at most gas stations. Costco's more like $1.65, but definitely it's on its way up. Doesn't look like it's slowing down yet, so we'll just see where things go. Now if we do take a quick look at this graphic here of Canada, breaks it down by province on how much gas prices are in each province, and you can see on here Alberta definitely is one of the lowest in the country, usually on par or so with Saskatchewan as well, but way lower than definitely some of these other provinces that we're seeing in Canada right now. And on the next graph here, you're going to see how our average Alberta gas rate compares to the Canadian average Alberta gas price, and you can see that we fluctuate together, but Alberta is usually just that little bit lower than the Canadian average. Now moving on to groceries and food. In the video we put out last year, we said that Alberta and Airdrie is pretty well on par with most of the country in terms of food and grocery prices and restaurants and things like that. But the biggest thing that's changed is just the overall cost of these things now. And this isn't just Airdrie or just Alberta, but it's across Canada and it's really across the world. Inflation has brought up the prices of food pretty dramatically over the last year, but if you're making that move here, you're not going to really notice that too much because you're already experiencing it where you're at. Now prices for specific products might vary a slight bit if you're coming from somewhere else in Canada, but overall the cost of food and restaurants and groceries is pretty well on par with the rest of the country. Alright, and now moving on to utilities, we're going to start with electricity here. If you look on this graphic here, you're going to see that the cost for electricity in Alberta is right in the middle. There's 6 provinces or territories more expensive than Alberta, and there's 6 less expensive than Alberta. But if you are moving from Ontario or BC, which most of our buyers seem to be moving from one of those 2 provinces right now, you can expect to pay slightly more in your electricity bill here each month. But if you're coming from one of the territories or from the East Coast provinces, then there's a good chance that you'll be paying a little bit less in your electricity every month. Alright, now moving on to natural gas for Airdrie and Alberta. Now it's pretty tricky to research the gas for Alberta and for the other provinces in Canada because the big headlining stories right now have been the fuel costs for vehicles, so it's pretty tricky to get some actual data for natural gas. But what I can tell you is that natural gas prices have gone up quite a lot in the last year, as they have everywhere around Canada. So if you live anywhere in Canada, you've already experienced this increase. Right now here in Alberta, the average home is paying about $183 per month for their gas bill here in the province. Alright, now moving on to water and sewer. Now I know from talking to clients who've come from BC, from Ontario, places like that, a lot of them are surprised that they have a separate bill for their water and sewer, as in a lot of these other towns and cities, it's rolled into your property taxes. But here in Airdrie, you do get a separate bill for your water and sewer, and for the average house, that's going to end up being somewhere around $110 to $140 per month, depending on your usage. So you're going to see on this chart here how the city breaks down the cost for that usage, and you can also see how it compared to last year now to this year. You see the total did go up a little bit year over year, as you would expect, but it really all depends on how much you're using in the month. Now if you're filling up a big pool in the summer, you're obviously going to use a lot more water that month, and your bill could be substantially bigger than this, but this just gives you a good average on what you're going to be paying month to month. All right, now moving on to taxes here in Alberta. Now, one thing that's interesting with Alberta tax rates is we don't have any tax bracket under $131,000. So anyone making under that $131,000 is going to be taxed 10%, and then our tax brackets tier up from there by 1% all the way up to 15% if you're making more than $314,000 a year. So if we break this down and compare it to the other provinces, essentially if you're making more than $40,000 or $50,000 a year, here in Alberta you're going to get taxed less than other provinces for the most part. But if you're making less than that $40,000 or so a year, then you might pay a little bit more in taxes here in Alberta. Now, in terms of sales tax, nothing has changed since last year here in Alberta. We still have our 5% sales tax here, which is a lot less than the other provinces in Canada, which end up being around 13% or so for that sales tax. Now, we are right on par with the territories above us with 5% sales tax as well, but that is a big savings that you'll get from here in Alberta versus a lot of other provinces. All right, now moving on to property taxes. We did just put out a video not too long ago explaining all about Airdrie property taxes, so it'd be a good idea to check that one out for sure for a bit more details. We'll link to it down below. Feel free after this video, click that link and watch that video on Airdrie property taxes. But to give you a quick rundown, last year when we did this video, our tax rate was 0.73% for residential homes in Airdrie. Now our tax rate did go down a little bit. It's 0.719% now. So we've gone down a little bit for the tax rate here in Airdrie, but what we found was our assessed values went up a little bit. So what we're actually paying for that dollar amount for your property taxes this year is almost on par, because you came down in the tax rate, but you went up in the assessed value. So it really ends up being a wash for 2022 compared to 2021. Now, to give you a few examples here of how much that tax is going to be, on a $500,000 home, your taxes are going to be about $3,600. On a $300,000 home, taxes are going to be about $2,200. And on a bit bigger $700,000 home, your taxes are going to be about $5,000 on that house. So just to give you a brief breakdown of what you're looking at in terms of property taxes, if you are buying a house here in Airdrie, they've stayed the same. I would expect next year our assessments are probably going to go up quite a bit as the market's gone up quite a bit. So just be ready for that. When you get your next property tax bill, it could be quite a bit higher than what you're paying right now. All right, and last but not least is the housing here in Airdrie. Now, we've seen some massive changes in the cost of housing here in Airdrie over the last year, which isn't unique to Airdrie over anywhere else. Pretty much everywhere has seen some massive price increases in their property values, but we're going to compare these values to that last video that was done in January 2021, so you can see the difference that we're seeing in our property values here in Airdrie. So we're going to start with apartments. Now, last year when we did this video, the average benchmark price of an apartment here in Airdrie was $186,000. That has gone up a bit, and now for 2022, right now we're sitting at about $203,000 for your benchmark price for apartments in the city. So up just about shy of 10% right now for those apartments. Now, for townhomes here in Airdrie, last year when we did our video, the benchmark price for a townhome in the city was $210,000. While this year, 2022, now just over a year later, our benchmark price is now $261,000 for that benchmark price. So definitely a bigger jump for the townhouses as compared to the apartments in their overall benchmark price. And last but not least, our detached homes here in Airdrie. Last year in our video, the detached benchmark price was $384,000 here in Airdrie, and this year, just a year and a bit later, our benchmark price for detached is now $550,000. So we've seen a huge increase for our benchmark price for detached homes here in Airdrie. Now, if you're making your move from somewhere like BC or Ontario, that number still probably seems pretty low to you. For us around here, that feels pretty high still, but it has gone up quite a lot in the last year. So you are looking at about a $550,000 benchmark price for detached right now. Well, that about does it for our update for our cost of living here in Airdrie, Alberta. If you have any questions at all or questions about how much things cost here, feel free to go into the comments below. I reply to every comment that gets posted, and I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you about any questions that you might have. Again, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. My name is Brad Walker with Real Broker, and we'll see you next time.